Let me
Okay.
just yeah. So yeah. How from the classes, CI classes so far, um, overall, yeah, in the festival,
Yeah.
what's the most relevant to you? The most relevant thing that you have found out this time?
Okay. I feel that's a very good point and to ask because it can bring me back like to see what's going on. So one thing I feel very surprised or like I feel appreciated. I will say two parts. Of course, one part is from yours, and another part is from Mingshen Ku. Of course, like it's more kind of like familiar narrative to me. Why? Because they are originally come from Chinese speaking countries or lands, and then like we are quite familiar with the training systems, right? So basically, like the CI narrative is quite similar, especially like Zoe comes from Shanghai, and then I'm trained under those kind of systems, so it's quite relevant. And Mingshen Ku always will raise some like new ideas because she had a lot of like teaching experience, but the most important and fun point for me is that she can separate one movement into different like segments, and then according to that, actually she can divide that into like three classes, four classes. So I would call it like Chinese philosophy. It's more like that way, and then okay, follow the flow and then to practice it. So this is most like impressive one for me, and I would feel really appreciate of that because it's more like okay, it's a CI spirit, it's without limitations, and you can feel free to explore and with the Chinese related spirits, and to echo it, and then when go back to yours because why I'd like to involve more workshop with you, not only like okay we might did some like querying CI stuff together. It's also I want to make CI at this conference more localized. So what I feel shocked or surprised is that only three like participants or facilitators like involved in this FIA conference. So if I want to explore this country more and I want to explore this land much more, how can I know that? Of course, it's from your perspective. I will get my first-hand material, right? And then what I feel really appreciate is that your structure is very clear. So like you're teaching idea or like the style is quite different compared to Mingshen Ku, because yours is more like structured, but you are not like separate everything into very detailed stuff. Because for example, rolling actually it can be divided into the head moving like body shifting, but you are not trying to do that, but you bring some like main points or key points, for example space time, and this is quite like fun for me. Why it's like exploring the universe, right? Because our body is like that, and that moment really I'm exploring like timeless, borderless, right? And according to my background, I can bring the old like training system, like the package, into that practice, so it will make it infinite. So that's why I feel like while I'll think back, okay, what I learned that past 3 days, it's quite clear for me why it's because it's structured, so it's easy to follow that system to do this.
What were there any particular like exercises or things that happened in class that was like surprising or yeah,
Okay.
interesting to you?
You mean like overall
Yeah.
or in your?
Anyway, yeah.
Okay, okay,
Overall, or any
overall.
particular moment could be like particular moment that
Okay.
you could remember,
Okay,
could
so
recognize.
yeah, still I will mention like from Mingshen Cruise. It's only like a very simple thing, walking. Cause why? Because I feel like this is a human nature. You work. I don't know like if we dance, but maybe like from the like research or something like that, we will say okay we dance, but walking is very like basic everyday's practice. Then like Mingshen Ku at that day's practice, really I'm so touched. I feel so touched of that. You just relax everything and put all the like not suffering. I mean like all the things and let it go back to the floor, go back to the earth. This is what I feel really touched and unforgettable moment. This is like one of the favorite practice that I have. And then I will mention like yes, Kichi's. Because I attended her workshop in Shanghai before, so I know like her teaching like styles, and she's quite like a creative person, right? Though like it's quite different style compared to other like CI practitioners. Then I like the moment that we stand into a line and we dance, we walking into the ring, right? So it's like the kids playing on the playground. So it's like release the nature. It's like okay, how you will be. And I feel why I feel so touched or like it's impressive to me. It's like it's release the nature of human bodies. Because all you twist, you do like this. Sometimes if you change the context, it will be to purpose for me. But that's a human nature. Okay, you will do something fun, you will like creative, or you will explore something. And then like for your workshop, I mean that's 3 days. What I feel, I'm the second day, the space, that moment, because we are like creating a fluid space together. So actually, it's not like a binary space. It's more like okay, you are creating your universe. Though you just offer like 3 points, for example, creative or like expressing or like curious or something like this, right? But actually, where did you put yourself in this space? It's like how you identify yourself, how you make the relation with this space and of even the human body or like more than that, right? So the narrative can be the diverse. So that's why I feel wow, it's very inspired on me. And of course like the last day of the performance part, it's very good. Why? Because it's like the feedback towards how we treat ourselves in this space and this time. Yeah. So this is like my answer to this question.
You have any question for me or any curiosity you want to ask me like about my process?
Okay, I have several questions, but it's a lot. Okay, so I know like you involved in the querying like movement. Let's see, like maybe you are not like on the first line to like stand out to do something, but still you involved in those kind of social movement, right? So how do you feel like while you are using CI or you are using art as a form or as a method to do this? Like what kind of situation you will meet? Do you think it's more like open-minded to become a tool to let people get into, or it's creating another barrier to people get into the queer world, or let's say
Into the
LGBT?
queer.
Yeah, it's more like inclusive, or like it's just another perspective
That's
from
a
your
very good
observation.
question. I feel like the role of art or like artistic thinking is cre- about creating, like to create and to critique
Yes.
both. I feel like it needs both sides, and queering for me is a practice. I mean, if like I mean the final goal is spiritual for sure, which would be like I'll keep it later. Uh, but for on a practical level, it's about like it's a lens of looking at the how society works and how human live
Yep.
uh, in a way that like it's natural. Like we form the normativity because it functions in some way, but it's not inclusive for everyone,
Yep.
or it can close down like a lot of possibilities
Yep.
of what a human can be. Yeah, and it sometimes it's too fixed, too conservative, too rigid, and it's unfair. So it creates a lot of like injustice and unfairness. And my approach in relation to art, like queering an art or artistic practice, is about how can I like recondition, like uncondition ourselves, our body, yeah, and the way we see the world. Yeah, and the critical part is like it involves the critical part also. It kind of keeps reminding us like is this really what we want, or is this what we need? Yeah, and yeah, it really relates to the practice we did on the last day of like what exactly do we need, like does the body
yeah,
need,
yeah.
and what is possible, do we really need
Yeah,
what we think we
exactly.
need, and that the
Yeah.
querying comes into that. Yeah,
Oh.
or what is now, because now is shifting and changing all the time, and being too fixed or too rigid is about not being now also, or forgetting about the now and like
Okay,
holding on
okay.
to something or
Wow.
not letting go. Yeah, and space is, it's all kind of like into this
What
question.
makes me full of the curiosity is that you, for example, as a physicist, right? And then how you will apply those kind of theory, not like a very serious theory, but more like practical or like visible theory into the CI practice. It can like creating another layer. Why? Because like at least for now, most of the CI facilitators or like CI teachers, most of them they are come from like body training background. It's not gender or like your area, right? So I think like the new perspective will always bring something like new, right?
Yeah.
So this is like I curious about like in the future. Maybe now, maybe you don't have the specific answer, but like, yeah, I'd like to follow up with your like new practice.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Yeah, this so relevant one. I feel like for me, physics is like a supporting system. Not as, because a lot of time people go to science as like a monolithic thing,
Yeah.
or some kind of authority or like a source of power to kind of even philosophical level to kind of conceptualize things and see, yeah, this is like awesome, and we should like look at the world this way, so smart, so rich. But for me, I would take like the other way around. Like I queer. I feel like by talking about the body, like by practicing the body,
Yeah.
I queer physics in a way
Wow.
into like a more kind of subjective like level, like layer of blending the subjective level of like feeling, sensing, understanding physics, and from the body knowledge, how can I re-question the pillars of physics, because
Okay.
science is super specific.
Yeah.
And also science relies so much on instrument to measure things. And what if my question is, what if I mean the apparatus are good at objectifying, or objectivizing
Yeah.
information, or standardized information. But what if we include the body as an
Yeah.
apparatus?
Yeah.
And the point is not about objectifying or objectivizing, but to subjectivize the perception, the physical perception of the world. Yeah, or to make physics more personal, and also create like a more humanistic version of physics, or more diversified, more inclusive version of physics. Yeah, so that's kind of my wish.
Your
Yeah.
wish. Wow.
Yeah.
Good to know that. And I have several questions, but like one of that is like now we are experiencing, cause like I feel especially this CI conference 51, I already heard a lot of people's feedback. Of course, like around me, it's more like Chinese speakers, right? So what the feedback that I can have is that they feel this environment is not that inclusive. Why? It's more like white are sharing more privilege here. And maybe it's just kind of like observation, but like the thing one of my friend really experienced in this morning is that while in the workshop session, so the teacher, the guiders, like separate them like into different groups, right? Of course, but the people will choose who becomes their partner. So it's mutual consent or like triple mutual consent, right? So it's like layer by layer. But then like there's one moment the teacher or like the teacher's assistant, then like assign, like pick out in these three group. It's like 2 Asian and 1 from like Western, and then the teacher pick out 1 Western out, and then assign like shorter, smaller another Asian from Vietnam in this group. So like at that moment, like it kind of like damn, or let's say like it's kind of like issue to her. Why she feel like it's kind of like racist. You know, it's very strong. So I'm like, when I think about this, or like I heard this feedback, I will say, okay, is this true? Like in this class, like it has a like behavior like that way, or like no matter conscious or like unconsciously, like people are doing like that way, right? So this is like, I'd like to invite lots of people to think about it, like what is it now, and what happening here.
I feel like it has to do with like privilege, kind of like privilege and kind of hierarchy, or like a certain kind of like consciously or unconsciously. And I had to say like I made a huge mistake also that I now really regret, and I'm still kind of dealing with it, was when in the first day when we did the binary question, and there's a question about like men, women, and I know that somebody got really triggered and like felt like some people were non-binary. They felt really triggered. Some felt really triggered, and feel like they have no place in the space. And it was, I feel like, I was really wrong. I admit I was really wrong, and like not appropriate to ask that question in that first.
May I have some like other perspective? So it's not like we are judging this question, it's right or not. It's like while we are raising up this question, do we have the awareness hidden behind to see we are judging people like this way, right? So this is the first point I need to add. And the second is that is those kind of people, well, they'd like to come out to say, okay, I don't think, okay, I'm female or I'm male. I'd like to stay in between, right? So this is also kind of like another choice.
Right.
But as the like participants, of course, like they will offer their feedback to see, okay,
Right,
this
they
question
could,
quite, but still they are not positive. They are not passive. They can also be the subjective one to stand out to say, okay, I don't think I'm like belong to any.
There's a lot of like nuances of what, or details of things that happen on that day that can affect the that can like generate triggers, or like make people feel certain ways. Also, I feel like I made some mistake with my wording also, that there's a train and you are not allowed to be there, and a lot of people are new also, and I had this kind of awareness that like I know it's political, and I like I encourage, I even like has an intention to encourage like disagreements, or but because of the context there's so many people, and people just think it's like a game for fun, and a lot of laughing, a lot of that kind of like non-seriousness to it, so it creates confusion of like why is my intention become not clear because all of these different context and factors
and the
in
narratives.
the space.
Exactly.
Right. So I really admit I made some mistake because I didn't mean to. It's not necessary to trigger some trauma. In that kind of situation.
So
And I didn't I didn't find a nice landing when this kind of thing happened. So but I'm glad at least that it's been communicated.
Okay. But you were assigned to do that opening, right?
Well, we sort of like I was
Collaborating.
asked to like do it together, and I can't say I'm like fully assigned because I consent to it, and I pick certain section to do that section to do. So it's like complicit. It's like I'm wrong, and but we're all wrong also. So it's not like it doesn't make it better,
Maybe I will have the last question. I might leave several days later, and I will definitely involve in different kind of like CI festivals. So would you think like in next year, though it's not called the CI 52 conference, but still like somehow in Thailand, will you become the one of the co-member of the facilitators or the organizers to make it happen?
Like this event, like
Yeah,
next
but
year.
not rather than let the
Rather
people
than
who don't have the narrative of the Thailand to organize and to make the most of the decisions.
um, yeah, that's a good question. For me, it's it's a lot of work to organize this thing. There is one Thai person responsible for organizing, which is Fern. Although she identify more with the kind of, I mean, she herself is like more Western, but she also has awareness and needs to like localize the thing. Um, I don't like, to be honest. With the economy of the festival, and I don't know how much power I have in taking a leadership role in it, because at the end of the day, most people who would come and pay for this would be like likely half of it is Westerners, and through the contact that it's the power is in the organizer. It's like kind of almost like attached to them
Yeah,
in a way.
exactly.
And just to say, to give another example, Arthur, who lives in Chiang Mai, he himself doesn't have this power to organize things like this, and not the will, and
Yeah,
the
I
because
can
of his
tell.
personality and
Yeah,
everything.
I can tell.
And he probably doesn't like to like host this kind of really huge festivals first
Yeah.
anyway. So yeah, and I see that it's not like I need to compete or want to compete with them, but what I can do in my role is to encourage them to decolonize the the festival as much as possible, and I can give my support as much as possible, because it's not like I get paid a lot anyway for this, and I hope they get paid enough that I can be supported through. Yeah, so it's like free job, it's like free work, free labor, and and the return is not very clear. Yeah, what do I gain from it? But now I feel like I gain something from it, to have a platform
Yeah.
to do and present my work, even
Exactly.
mostly to Westerners.
Yeah.
It's something we have to deal with a lot, actually, in the art field in Thailand. Not just me, everyone,
Yeah.
because we rely on money from the West.
Oh, heavily.
Yeah, everything we do, like all because of this, injustice, the economy system. Uh, yeah, or how can I get access, to the people who can support the event?
Oh,
That's
okay.
also, yeah.
Definitely it will have a solution, for example, like connecting like around the world to see like what other CF festivals. Because I feel like towards like no matter 51 or 50, they are like connecting with other CF festivals in Europe, and then they are help sending out them emails, to notice, like send out the notice to see, okay, it has some
Yeah.
like stuff happening. It's more like a promotion, and
Right.
be confident in not yourself, I mean like the local people, to see maybe like they have the ability, to organize, though like language maybe for some of the people will be a barrier,
Right.
but
That's a
still,
huge barrier, actually. Yeah.
exactly, but still it has space.
Right. Right. Um, Actually, Pan has been chatting with me a lot these days about organizing our own kind of like Thai oriented
Yeah,
festival, or make it like a
yeah.
sustainable practice of CI in Thailand. Um, but we have to, yeah, I mean, this kind of thing, we just have to do it ourselves, right? When how and when do we find the strength?
How many organizers
that.
are there in this CI festival?
Mainly four.
Only
So
four.
Sasha, Dolores, Fern, and Steven.
Oh, so
Yeah,
not
so Fern
that.
and Steven, yeah, not that many. And the rest, the teachers team, they just recruit from the community. And the good sign is that I mean, economically, it makes more sense for them to invite Asian teachers. So, and I see this is a good sign that then there's space to be more connected, and yeah, they're not gonna really invite teachers from Europe. Before, many of the Asian festivals they invite European teachers, right? And I don't know when, like in the world, where all the European CI festival would invite Asian teachers. That's not the
That's
pattern,
good
right?
sign. Yeah.
So to actually to build like this base of like Asian teachers and community, like really strong one. Maybe at some point we make a break into the European.
Yeah.
But
Maybe.
yeah, I feel like it's a huge inequality in general anyway about the dance scene in Europe and Asia.
Yeah, it's totally different.
Yeah.
Even like their practice is another like training system. So,
Yeah.
but I don't like to see it become more localized and decon decolonialized. Right? Really. I feel like, especially most of the people from Asia, they will feel those kind of pressure. They see what really I see, and even you can see, I eat sometimes, so people will talk together, right? So I feel like, at least around me, I will heard those kind of stuff several times. So I feel like if it can be like changed into another narrative, maybe it will help better. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like because the Beijing community is quite strong. I have a feeling it's quite big, and like Taiwan and China has a very strong culture and language.
Yeah.
But as long as Chinese doesn't get like accepted as a language or as a culture of CI, then it would still be like very American oriented. It's not even like European, in a way.
Oh, you will
If you
see
think
it's more
about it,
like.
yeah, CQ is like really Americanized, American centered.
But here, I think like practice certain people from the US, right? This is the first
Very
point.
few people from US, and I heard that I have a perception that in European countries there's some kind of more secluded CI communities, like the Finnish or like those kind of places, where it's almost like they have their own technique
Okay,
or their own
yeah,
teaching.
yeah, it's quite
Yeah.
different because I know like what the US style it is because like in different cities they practice in a totally different way.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Also, yeah. It's a bit like democratized, but the language they use is quite specific also. Yeah, I noticed recently the CI language, teaching language, involved more of the kind of Thich Nhat Hanh, philosophy, Buddhist philosophy, also, or like more poetic and imagery.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, but it's hard to identify like culture because people don't use the term of like
Yeah,
culture
that often here.
in the CI field,
Exactly.
right?
But I have one small observation. Just one night, it's the focus jam. Maybe it's not related with the interview, but maybe it is.
It's okay. Yeah, it's
So
like
she's from Hawaii and she's a farmer. And in Hawaii, there's several CI communities there, but she's quite new of CI. So I feel like after that focus jam, while like different people bring out the idea, okay, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that, right? After that, she left. First, I feel like maybe she don't have the space, to fit inside, because she's quite new. But still, like for me personally, I feel like even I danced for like 5 years, so I got my back hurt. Still, I don't know. After that, I should do? What is right for them?
Yeah,
Right.
This is a tricky question. Like for beginners, like it's like it's impossible to expect that with everything we say they will understand or it makes sense to them.
Exactly,
Even
yeah.
underscore, it takes like months to really get a hang of it. So yeah, and that's the tricky part. Sometimes like the more complex issues like cultural and like sexuality, maybe it's very hard to explain to beginners when they don't even know like what is the the core CIAs or what it's about.
Yeah.
Actually, this is a very interesting question. Like CI is so boundless and borderless,
Yep.
and that affects that affects the clarity of communication
And
for beginners.
thinking about it, how about if CI is based on the mutual consent, right? Then if you and me we are dancing together, we are agree we can do this locking, and you enjoy it and I enjoy it. Then while it be raised up, it's kind of like a violence. Why? Because you are limited to do something in CI. I feel like it's quite against the law. I mean the rule, the principle of the CI itself.
Yeah, I I feel like whenever we use such a complex term like mutuality or consent, it's already at the kind of like social political level, right? But
Yeah.
but in the practice itself, it's just you stay there and just breathe.
Yeah, take
That's
care
how we
of
actually.
yourself and take care of your partner, right?
Yeah,
That's the
even
thing.
the word choice of like take care of yourself, this is already very complex. Like how, what is the
How you
boundary
want?
of yourself? What
Yeah,
do you mean by
yeah.
yourself? And
Exactly.
what do you mean by care? You know, it's just very complex. But if we just like limit the language to just like, okay, like how's your breathing, observe your breathing, but then it becomes very abstract and intangible, and like what's the point, you know, becomes also that kind of ambiguity also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe also it's because of the community itself, like because the people
Yeah.
inside it itself, it's always it's fluid. So like maybe this year, recently this community it has that kind of vibe, but maybe like few years ago it's go to another direction
I
in a
agree.
sense.
I feel like the
Yeah.
language of CI has probably shifted a lot
Yeah.
also because of the culture. Maybe nobody used the term mutuality like at the beginning at all, you know. It wasn't even in the equation.
But
Yeah.
what sometimes like the weird thing is that, but of course I think it's quite related because of course about the sexuality or like gender stuff, right? So while like there was someone like read up like some perspective from the BDSM, like the safe words or like the red, yellow, green light. So it's kind of like okay, it kind of like sharing some like similar your principle or the rule into the CI. So I'm not sure it's good or not, but people might take advantage of it. Those kind of principles to say, okay, maybe I can also do this at
Right.
the BDSM scene
Yeah.
or something like this.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. Is
It's
this
a
in my
human.
question?
Yeah, it's a human and social issues comes in on top of the practice, because at the end of the day, who does CI, right? It's people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's people. Yeah, that's a tricky thing, and it's very social form. So at the
Yeah,
end, yeah, like
definitely
these
it
days,
is.
yeah, it wasn't just like an exercise for a contemporary dancer
No,
anymore,
no, no.
or like or
It's quite.
movement researcher anymore.
Do you feel it's you really see it's quite flexible, not flexible, complex?
Not necessarily. I think it's because it's involved many contexts. Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be
I mean,
anywhere.
it can be simple. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just a
it's
dance.
not. Yeah,
It's just a movement. Let's
yeah, yeah,
move
yeah,
and let's dance.
yeah.
But if you bring it into like different context and narrative, then it
Yeah,
is.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, I feel. Yeah, that's kind of like my main focus in the past year, about like contextualizing CI to really like to really find like positioning, the right positioning for my work, because before that I got like really confused. I confused myself a lot as to like how should I teach CI. And
Oh.
yeah, and if I make CI for this group of people, will it still be CI, or how well, I mean, maybe that's not the most delicate and considered question. Maybe about like how much of it come from CI and how much of it is more about other things.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and at which point when I cannot claim it as CI anymore.
And what kind of intention brings people to join the
Exactly.
CI? Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
feel
yeah. Yeah.
I feel we are good if we stop here.
Yeah.